Hey, what's going on everyone? It's Joe from GadgetryTech, and I am pleased to be announcing that the StealthZ pad is now available for the Audeze Maxwell. For those of you who are unaware of what this is, the StealthZ pad is a collaboration between myself and Wicked Cushions. Basically, I design and spec a headset pad of my choosing, in terms of dimensions, pad material, performance, etc. I provide that information to the owner of Wicked Cushions. We kind of go back and forth and make sure we're on the same page. And then Wicked Cushions helps with the manufacturing and distribution. So when you search for this online, you'll see Wicked Cushions. But if you see the StealthZ pad or FPS or whatever it may be from Wicked Cushions, that is the collaboration pad. And I'm pleased to say that it's now available for the Maxwell. Now, if you didn't know that this pad exists and you have a different headset model, I have released this pad for the entire Nova lineup from SteelSeries. The Nova 1 all the way to the Nova Pro Wired is one pad. The Nova Pro Wireless is its own. I also have pads for the Astro A50, the Gen 4, Gen 5, and X is the same pad, and the HyperX pad for a variety of cloud headsets, including some other headphones and headsets out there, because that pad is more universal. Before I get any further with the pad talk on the Maxwell, I do have a very important thing I want to announce for all Maxwell owners, whether you want to buy new pads or not. The firmware changes for this headset has changed the sound quality. I haven't actually been that happy with it since the latest firmware announced, and I finally had enough headsets and pads and all of that to validate my findings. So be sure to check out the firmware section of this video. I'll explain the impact of the latest firmware, what it does to your sound quality, how to mitigate that, and also how to roll back to a prior headset firmware if you want the old performance back. With that being said, the StealthZ pad, I'm very excited this is finally out, and this was by request because a lot of people wanted it to exist after seeing the impact and benefits people were getting on other models. So I want to disclose a couple things. I obviously stand to gain from this if you purchase this, so I want you to remember that and not worry, I guess, too much that I'm just here to try to sell you a product. I make these products because I genuinely want good products out there and I want people to have options. And having said that, there are excellent pad options for the Maxwell. The Maxwell has more good pad options than almost any headset I can think of. So this is in addition to all of that, and I will briefly touch on that. I also have a video where I compared all the other pads for this prior to this coming out. So I'll have a link in the description for that. Having said that, I had very specific performance goals in mind with the Maxwell. I wanted to keep the weight down because some of the aftermarket pads are heavier than stock. And let's face it, the Audeze Maxwell is already a 500 plus gram headset as it is. So adding more weight to that didn't sound as appealing to me. I also wanted the pad to be very breathable and airy. I wanted to have more depth so my ear didn't touch the baffle. And I generally just wanted it to feel a little bit more like an open back headset because I do a lot of gaming and FPS use, and to me having less of that plunger effect and a more breathable natural sound was more beneficial for both gaming and music, as long as you do EQ to get some of that bass back if you are craving the initial bass that the Maxwell has with stock pads. Frankly, I love the comfort of the StealthZ pad. I just wanted a pad that didn't make the Maxwell feel as much like a Maxwell as it is. I wanted it to feel lighter. I wanted it to be more breathable, and long gaming sessions are super important for me. The clamp force is going to feel just a little bit slighter with the StealthZ pad over stock because the pads are a little bit thicker. So anytime you do that, there's more outward pressure. You can always adjust the upper strap to loosen it a click, and that'll help kind of loosen up the clamp force a little bit as well. But for long-term comfort, I've been absolutely loving it, and it's also helpful for glasses too because these pads are kind of like pillows. I didn't use any gel or anything. It's just a giant memory foam cushion, so it's really soft and compliant. So I hope that helps for your long-term comfort concerns as well. Now, if you want a lot of bass and you want an upgraded pad over stock and you don't want to purchase the StealthZ pad to do EQ, there are some good ones out there. I already have them mounted on this Maxwell. That's the Wicked Cushion Freeze pad, which is this guy here. Cooling gel, nylon material on the front. It's like a sport fabric. It's a heavier pad. It makes the headset noticeably heavier than before, but luckily the pads are very plush and comfortable, and I liked them a lot. It's the closest sounding pad to stock. So if you just pad swapped and did no EQ, this sounds almost identical. So it worked out really well there. Dakoni also makes a sheepskin, a real leather pad that sounds excellent and is very comfortable. It's noticeably more expensive, but I have teamed up with Dakoni to give everyone a discount. So yes, the rebel I am offering a discount code for a competitor's pad because I genuinely feel that you have a lot of good options out there. Now, if you want to purchase new pads and swap them out, all you have to do is twist this off and the pad pops off. It's super easy to switch, and then I just push it back on and it locks in place. This is the new StealthZ pad, and you can see that the cushion itself is extremely thick. When you compare it to the Wicked Cushion Freeze pad, there are a couple changes. There's a little bit different shape here. It's kind of scalloped in just a little bit, and it still has a leatherette inner just like mine. I still went with a leatherette interior liner because I wanted to keep some of the noise isolation and the dynamics of the base as it is. It does help maintain a little bit more of a seal than going with a full suede, but it's really minor. Now you will notice that the Wicked Cushion Freeze pad dimensionally, and if you looked at the chart before, there are more openings on the stock and freeze pad. Like the actual opening itself is a little bit wider and taller. This is very easily workable. So like if I pulled it, it opens up by several millimeters and kind of sits there. These are hand stitched. So my Stealth pad is going to vary just slightly dimensionally, but they will be matched to each other in the box. So I didn't have any issues with the clearance in terms of width and height. It's a little bit smaller, but the big kicker is you still get the depth that I was going for. And I didn't want to make the opening too much larger because I want very consistent imaging performance. I want the headset to sit exactly the same on both the left and right side. So on the note of sound quality, the stock Maxwell, when it first came out and what a lot of reviews were based on, was amazing. The sound quality is excellent. It still is, but there is a change in the sound quality even if you don't touch the headset and you just update to the latest firmware. So I'm going to show you the impact of that in a moment. However, when I designed the Stealth pad, I wanted it to closely mirror the mid-range performance of the Maxwell as much as possible. Now this yellow line represents the Audeze preset, which is the same thing as using a 10-band preset in flat. So I just wanted to show you the difference in sound quality. And you can see that the mid-range is very similar. What does change anytime you switch to a velour or even a suede pad is you lose more bass energy. Because we're going from a leatherette pad that has a really good seal, it's kind of like a suction type thing, and you switch to something more breathable, it's kind of like creating a leak, if you will, and that reduces bass energy. There's no way to get around that, but I still wanted the breathability of a velour pad like this. Now, thankfully, the Maxwell handles EQ like a champ, so if you want a lot of bass, you can easily add that and even exceed what the stock Audeze preset sounds like, really without much fuss. Even with that being said though, I recommend at least trying it without doing EQ first because I think it still sounds quite good. And if you're on the competitive side, the Stealth pad was designed for more of the competitive edge by getting rid of some of the bass bloat for those who can't do EQ. With the Maxwell, it's different because we can easily fill that back in, but it still sounds quite good if I'm to be honest. I mean, obviously I put a lot of work into it, but I do want to show you the Dakoni velour pad because it measures almost identically to the Stealth. You have a little bit less bass energy down here at 200 Hertz, and it's a tad brighter in the treble on the velour. So Dakoni still has a good pad, good mid-range tuning. I just wanted to show you that for transparency. Now here's where it gets crazy. This is based off, if you see the notes, it says 0.63 firmware. The latest firmware for the Maxwell is 0.74. And I'm just going to show you something that's going to kind of blow your mind a little bit. If I expand this and add 0.74 on the same headset, look at how different the frequency response is. And I'm going to change the color in case someone is colorblind because I think that's eerily close. I actually think that was okay, but this is the exact same headset, staying on the rig, not taking it off, and just switching the firmware from 0.63 to 0.74, stock pads and everything. The latest preset or the latest firmware that came out from Audeze greatly lifted the sub bass, it reduced the mid-range, and frankly, it increased the treble so much, like over 10 decibels above 16,000 Hertz. This is what caused this to have serious issues for me. I find the high treble way too strong. If you're not sensitive to high treble, then you will likely like the newest firmware more because it's going to kind of sound a little bit more airy and spacious than the older preset. So I did confirm 0.61 and 0.63 edition of the firmware will sound identical to each other. So just if you're going to roll back, go to 0.63. Now I also, of course, measured the Stealth pad with the 0.74 firmware so you could see the difference in sound quality there. And let's just activate my Stealth one again. So this is just the exact same headset again. This is this particular one, just changing the firmware with the Stealth pad. Again, a big bass lift, and you can see a lot of high treble energy up here in the higher frequencies. So you can have a preference. There's really nothing wrong necessarily with either or. But for me personally, I liked the older firmware more. Now I'm going to be presenting these findings to Audeze in more detail. I've actually sent some emails to their engineers in the past, but I haven't gotten a resolution. And just to summarize, the reason why I delayed this video, I've done well over 100 measurements in the last week. I'd say honestly as much as 150 measurements, because I remeasured multiple pads. I had different versions of my Stealth pad that had, you know, different production runs, like my earlier prototype versus the pre-production sample, full production retail pad, because I bought this on Amazon directly just to ship to my house quicker. So I kept remeasuring. I changed the firmware from all 3 versions available, kept measuring those, and that's multiple seatings with averages for accuracy. And I also put the same pad on all 3 of these headsets and averaged those measurements, because I want to make sure that if your Maxwell has a little bit of driver variance from model to model, or there's a little bit of pad variance, I wanted to make sure I got to an end goal that is going to satisfy as many people as I can, again, for transparency. So because of all that, this relentless amount of testing, I have confirmed that the 0.74 firmware negatively changes the sound quality for me. Way too much high treble and that bass shelf. So if you do not want to use the latest firmware, luckily it's very easy to change. All you have to do is open the Audeze HQ app, go to settings, hold down the control button on your keyboard, and just kind of spam click the firmware number on the top left corner. You will then get a pop-up window that's going to show you the available versions for that headset, going back as far as 0.61. I recommend just switching to 0.63 because there's a couple extra bug fixes in there, and it still has the old audio performance that I think a lot of people base their reviews and initial assessment on. If you're used to the old Maxwell sound, that's a good way to get it back. Otherwise, you can upgrade to 0.74 and it will have the attributes that this pink line shows. We have a little bit more bass and high treble. Now, I did make 2 presets for the Maxwell, as I do with all of my Stealth videos. One of them is a general EQ preset, which is better suited to kind of get back to a more factory sound. It's going to have more bass, nice smooth mid-range, and all of that good stuff. So this is the setting for the general EQ, and this is based off the 0.74 firmware, because I think more people are going to be on that at this point, provided you've been using the headset a lot in the last 6 months. If you roll back to the old firmware, you can modify the high treble band and the lowest bass frequency of 32 Hertz. So if you migrate to the old firmware, just lift 32 Hertz by 1 or 2 decibels. And on the old firmware, again, if you want more treble, you can lift 16,000 Hertz to kind of get some of that air back. But that is more for personal preference. I don't generally lift 16,000 Hertz too much. So that is the difference there. And then here is my EQ for FPS, which is fairly similar to an extent, but I have a little bit more focus in the mid bass and a little bit less emphasis in the sub bass, because I want a very clean, tight image presentation. The mid-range tuning is tweaked slightly as well, just by experience in playing FPS. And I find that if you use the FPS preset with the Maxwell, it's awesome for gaming. I mean, I didn't think this was always a class leader just on imaging performance, but it is amazing with detail retrieval. And I think these pads further assist the Maxwell in performing better. Again, I don't want you to think I'm saying it just because I made it. I really encourage that once some reviews hit the market and people kind of share their experiences, look at those too. But I made this because I'm passionate about it and I wanted to get a better experience for myself and provide that same experience for other people. If you don't want to dial all of those EQs in and you're on the latest firmware and most recent version of Audeze HQ, I will have Google Drive links in the description below so you can quickly download the file, and then on your presets tab you can click load. It'll import the file and save it to the headset automatically, which will save you some time. Audeze's HQ is a somewhat buggy mess, so if you're typing in these EQ bands yourself and kind of making your manual adjustments, sometimes it doesn't stick or apply. So if it ever crashes on you, just restart the application, change to the Audeze preset, then go back to the custom slot that you were modifying to finish customizing it again. That way you can toggle back and forth and make sure you're getting the settings that you were expecting. That about wraps up the video, and depending on when you're watching this pad is currently not available in Canada or Australia. Everything has been shipped and processed there. It's going to go live. We're working on it. There's some weird logistical issues that I didn't expect to run into, but because it's been available everywhere else, I wanted to release this video. Kind of a shaky launch, I'll admit, but I hope that for those of you who already got it or who get it after watching this video, I hope it meets or exceeds your expectations. With that being said, I always get asked about doing other headset models. The next plan is to start addressing development for a few other ones out there, like Biodynamic and Sennheiser, just to see if we can play with that area a little bit. But if there's a headset in particular you're interested in, shoot a comment below, and if there's a window of opportunity there, we'd be happy to explore it. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate the support, and I'll see you at the next video. Take care.